With spring fast approaching, I think there's still time for one last wintry stick to your ribs meal. So I made osso buco. To start off, we need to flour some meat. Specifically beef shank or beef leg, whatever you want to call it. It's the same thing. So you want one with the bone, obviously that's the leg bone, and most importantly is the marrow in the middle, and then a nice big meat on the outside. And you want to get some flour into a plate, and you want to generously season it, and just get that incorporated. And simple enough, you just want to get flour all over your kitchen table and the meat. Bang off a little bit of the excess, but you don't want to bang off too much because this flour that you put on the meat will help thicken the sauce later on. So that's why we're flouring it to this step. And we just go along, maybe bread one or two more, and then we'll head to the stove. I don't want the flour sitting on it too long, so depending on how big your pot is, you just want to flour enough to give the meat one layer so we can sear them off, and then once you've seared those off, then we'll come back and flour the other ones. I don't want the flour sitting too long on the meat because, I don't know, I just don't think that's a good thing to do. So I got my pan super hot, we're just going to sear off the meat. Once you've got some good colour on one side, you want to flip it over and brown the other side. Once you've got all of your meat seared off, I want to put a piece of string around the outside just to hold it all together so when we come to serve it up after it's braised, it doesn't just fall apart. So I've got some butcher's twine here. Make sure you have enough slack. Go around the outside, and then simple enough, you just go around twice. And the reason why you go around twice is because when we pull it tight like this, it doesn't hold together. So we go around 3 times, pull it tight, and then get your camera assistant to put their finger on the knot. And then we just lock it off and snip off the excess. Now we'll go through and get the rest of them tied up. Once you finish shearing off your meat, you want to bung in a bunch of veggies. Now I've got onions, celery and carrots. So I'm just going to put them all in together and then we'll start sweating down these veggies. Also at this point, we want to start adding some salt. So as we're sweating these veggies down, they'll start to release water or moisture, whatever you want to call it. And you just want to use that to start scraping off all that good fond that got stuck to the bottom. Also, onions, carrots and celery, it's a good base for everything Italian, you could say. I'm using red onions. Most people would use brown, but I got red on hand, so that's what I'm using. I'm just going to keep sweating these down, and once we're ready to get on to the next step, we'll come back. As you can see, my veggies are sweating down quite nicely here. Now they've got about 5 more minutes before I'm ready to add the tomato paste, but now it's time to add some garlic. So I've just got a few cloves there that I chopped up into a dice, you could say, but don't get too hung up on getting it too small. It's going to cook down for a long time and you won't notice if it's a little bit of a bigger chunk than some other ones. So we'll get that mixed in and keep sweating them down. Once you've got your veggies sweated down nicely, you want to add some tomato paste. A good amount. And we'll get that all mixed in. Alright, once you've had the tomato paste in, you've cooked out that rawness. When I say you cook out the rawness, you just want to put it in there, cook it out for maybe 2 minutes or so. 2 to 3 minutes, should be fine. Now we're going to go ahead, add some cans of crushed tomatoes. Also with each can, I'm just going to wash it out with a little bit of water and tip that in there too. And then just get that mixed in. So I just brought that up to a steady simmer. Now I've just removed it from the heat and I've pulled it forward off the element just to make it easier for myself. And now comes the hard part of trying to fit all this meat into this pot. Okay, so there's been a slight change of plans. I overestimated how much meat and how big my pot was. So I put a couple in this small baking dish here. It's going to be fine. I got some homemade beef broth here. And both of these, I'll pour some in. Bring these up to a simmer. And then we're going to cover it up and bung it in the oven. So once you've got it up to a simmer, you want to stick it into a 150°C oven until the meat's nice and tender. It should take around 2 to 2.5 hours. So we're going to make a gremolata to go on top. Boost the freshness up a little bit. So I've picked a bunch of parsley off of the stems and I've just left behind any of the smaller stems. Don't get too fussy about this. You can leave some of the smaller ones behind, but if you've got any big woody ones, take them out. So I've just picked all the leaves off, run my knife through it just a little bit, and now I'm going to grate in a clove of garlic. Now you can also add more than 1 clove if that's your thing, but for me, I do like garlic, but raw garlic is very polarizing, so add as much as you feel. Next, we're going to zest a lemon. Now I haven't washed the microplane out, that's fine, but you just want to take the yellow part of the lemon, not the white. And you just want to be taking the zest off. Now you want to just keep chopping the parsley up all through the parsley, which is what we're aiming for here. So you want to leave the parsley quite flat, and once you've cut it all up like that, as you can see, there's no clumps of garlic or lemon zest anywhere. It's evenly distributed throughout the whole lot. So now what you want to do, give it a taste. Now for me, I need a little bit of zest in there, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then I'll mix that through, and then we'll set it aside till it's ready to use. So next we want to peel and cut potatoes into little squares like that. Once you've done that, cover them with some nice fresh water, give it a good dose of salt, and then we want to put these on the burner and bring it up to the boil and cook until they're nice and tender. While you're bringing your potatoes up to the boil, you want to get some butter ready. Now, I'm looking for the most buttery, creamiest mashed potatoes of all time, so I'm going in with a whole pack of butter. So you just want to cut it into, chunkies like this, and you want to dump a bunch of cream in there with it. So you want to put this on the stove on a low heat, just until the butter melts. You don't want to get it super hot, just enough for it to melt. So I cook my potatoes until they're nice and tender, and now I'm going to put them through a ricer. So load it up, and just give it a press, and we're going to go ahead and do the rest. Okay, once you've got all your potatoes put through the ricer, you want to pour over all that cream and butter that you've had gently warming on the stove. We'll start with about 3/4 of it, and we'll mix that in, and then we'll add the rest. Once you've mixed that lot of cream and butter in, you want to pour the rest. Also at this point, you're going to add some salt and adjust as needed. Once you've got your seasoning how you want it, you want to stick a lid on it and put it on the stove till you're ready to use it. Just a key thing to note, if this tightens up before you're ready to serve it, warm up a little bit of milk and mix that through it. That should loosen it up so it's nice and smooth and creamy. The one in the pan is ready. These are nice and tender, and we're going to set them aside till the rest of them's done. If your sauce is a little thin like mine, but you've got a lot of people coming over and you need a lot of sauce, we're going to cheat this a little bit. Instead of reducing it, we're just going to add a cornstarch slurry, which is just a tablespoon of cornstarch and some water that I've just mixed up. So we're going to add a little bit at a time and just mix it in until we get the consistency that we're looking for. Don't add too much, and make sure this is nearly at a boil or at a boil, because it will only thicken up once it's actually at that temperature. So just add a little bit at a time until you get the consistency you're looking for. And it should pretty much act instantly. Now for me, I just want it a little bit thicker, so add a little bit more, and that should just about do it for me. Also at this point, we're just going to give it a little taste for seasoning, and then we'll be ready to plate this bad boy up. Even though it's frightfully hot, I'm willing to risk the burns into my mouth to get a taste first. It's actually not that hot. So usually, osso buco is served over some polenta or risotto, but I think you got to give this super rich buttery mashed potato a go, especially if it's going to be your last meal of the winter.